Final request that we want to take a look at will be the post, patch, and delete. Taking a look at how the put request is made, the patch request, and the delete, we can all see that it follows the exact same pattern where we have a body, the method, and the headers, except for delete, but that can be added depending on the kind of request that we are making. Since we already have the post and the post is similar to put and the other request, we are simply just going to use the post, the structure, what we already have for the post, and update it slightly to fit the put. That for the post request, we can see that it only sends in a URL without any dynamic segments or parameters. But for the put request, there may be cases where you actually have to pass in some dynamic values. In this particular case, it is the post ID. And we want to cater for that. Currently in the post method, or in our schema to generate a post request, only deals with the static URL or the route. But we want to add the dynamic ones to it, just as what we did for the get request, like this. If we take a look at our get request, let's make this a little bit bigger. If we take a look at our get request, we can see that it makes the request to a particular endpoint with a dynamic parameter. And we are going to do the exact same thing with the put request or any other request that needs the dynamic parameters, as well as adding its input and then the response that is needed, just like what we have for the post request, with the exception that this time there will be a dynamic parameter. So how do we do this? It's actually pretty simple. Let's get rid of this word. So we're going to add a new keyword, which is going to be put. So put is going to identify that the request that we're going to make is a put request. That means the method will be put and not post or any other request. The parameter, and following the exact same structure that we have for the other requests, we need to provide a name. In this particular case, we are updating a resource. So let's say we want to update post. So update post, we pass in the route. What route are we sending it to? Is the slash post slash the post ID. So we do post, and we can do the dynamic parameter of post ID. All right. Then we need to bring in the input. What input are we dealing with? Let's call it update post input. So we're going to create that type, and the response will be, let's call it updated post. So we're going to create the type for the update post input and the type for the updated post. First, let's deal with the inputs, which is simple. Just going to bring in what we have, what the example has, and we're just going to pass that into there. So let's do that. So we brought in the schema for the input. Now we also need to add the dynamic parameter to it, in the sense that we will extract that post ID being passed to this particular request into the URL, which will generate that for us, which will create that when it's sending the request. And we are going to send the rest of the request to the server in the body, just as what we have over here. So let's bring in the post ID. So with the post ID, it will be extracted and placed inside this route, and then the request will be sent with the body containing only this. Now we need to update our code to cater for this, for the put, as well as the dynamic endpoint, the dynamic segment or the dynamic URLs for post request, put, and all those mutation type methods. So first we need to update the URL to pass in the correctly formatted URL, and we need to update the variables that will be sent to the server. So back in the utils file, I extracted the code to split or to format the URL with the data inside, or to insert the data inside of it into a function called get formatted URL resources, which is going to return to us the fully constructed URL with the data inside and the remaining data that should be sent toward the server. So we're going to use this particular function to get the path as well as the data that needs to be sent in the body of the request, and the path will be the URL. So just as we did for the get or the query request or the query hooks or the get request, we're going to do the exact same thing for the post methods or the mutation methods. So let us bring in the function. So this is a function. We bring in our function. We need to pass in the URL. Then we need to also pass in the variables right here, which will return to us the path as well as the data. So we're going to send this, the path will be passed to the fetch request, and the body will be passed in the data, the correctly extracted data or the remaining data that will be sent to the server. The next thing that we need to do is to change this method based on what has been passed in. So in this particular case, we do need the keyword here. So with the keyword, currently we have only post, but if we come here, so if the keyword is post, we can add the put keyword also here so that it will generate the request for us and the others. So let's bring in the first. We need to also add the keyword. Now you can change this to anything that you want. It's totally up to you. Maybe even your hooks, you are not actually creating hooks to send to the server, or doing some unique computations that maybe require some schema structure and stuff like that. You can write all that in here. So it's not necessary that you are creating hooks to send to the server. You can use whatever it is that you want inside these hooks. It's totally up to you. Bring in these keywords over here. So we have the post, put, patch, and delete. So all the requests, the keyword that matches any of this will be sent to this particular function. And now we have the keyword. All we need to do is just simply replace that over here. So that is that, and we can try it out. Sorry, we also need to define the type for the response. So updated post will be a single post. Yeah, so let's just send in the post. Instead of creating a whole new type, we're just going to use post. I don't know what actually will be sent by the server, but I'm just using this as a placeholder. So let us generate our code. So you can see inside our generated code, we have the post, the update post. We have the mutation, and you can see that it's passing in the resource, the full URL. Oh, sorry, the URL with the dynamic parameter and the variables, which is going to extract that and pass it on to the fetch function with the URL and the method. Actually, we need to put this in quotes, right? And the data will be sent to the body. So let us fix this little part right here. So we can even check the file itself right in our code. So we can see that the function is generated for us. The get formatted URL resource, we need to import that directly over here. So we have our get formatted URL resource, which is imported from our util function.